There's an extraordinary story coming out of suburban Atlanta about a gay married couple arrested for, well, what can only be described as a pedophile pornography prostitution ring, and it involves their two adopted children. It's incredibly disturbing, and it's rolling out right now in a 4-part series over at townhall.com. Of course, Town Hall Media, part of the Salem family, where my byline is seen every day. And we have the investigative reporter who's been delving into this story in an incredible way. She is the investigative reporter at Town Hall, Mia Cathell, and she joins us now. Mia, thank you for coming down the hall and talking to us here in our DC studio.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, give us a thumb. I mean, I described it and it sounds so incredibly disturbing. And part of the story here is that this couple, they were sort of a celebrated, iconic couple. They represented everything that the LGBTQ community in Atlanta, I think, would celebrate, right? They're married and they adopted children and they were very sort of active in the community. Is that correct?
That's correct. They were like this ideal, picturesque family. They were engaged, married not long after, and then they adopted 2 boys. They kept using the hashtag love is love. Now that's a mainstream LGBT slogan. That's something that so-called minor attracted persons, aka pedophiles, have hijacked to say, let's normalize pedophilia. Let's normalize sexual attraction to children.
And of course, as you've delved into this story, and in a very responsible way, I think the way you're reporting it and telling it at Town Hall, in no way is there a suggestion that if you're gay, it means you're a pedophile, or if you're married and adopt children, this would happen. But this did happen. It is a horrific story. What's sort of the broad overview of what the police have charged these two with?
Well, there's 17 charges in this 17-count indictment, and these heinous sex crimes against their own children ranges from rape, sodomy, incest, and then not just making child pornography and distributing it, but pimping out their children to nearby pedophiles in this Atlanta area suburb. And that's something that's shocking that it could happen in some affluent suburban neighborhood when you would think human trafficking, child sex trafficking, is something more of an issue in the city like Atlanta.
Right, and sort of like the seedy underbelly sort of thing. And let's talk about the way this story came out and how the police found out about it. They were very active on social media. They lived their life on Facebook, Instagram, as so many people do. And again, they represented this iconic, sort of almost heroic gay couple, gay family. But they also had sort of a disturbing footprint on social media where they were reaching out to potential customers.
Right. Instagram, Facebook, all of their social media activity was public. It seemed like they were promoting themselves as influencers in this kind of gay activism scene. They had Out Magazine, which is a prominent LGBT monthly publication, really high circulation in the US. I believe the highest was reaching out to feature their images at the Pride Parade. They were part of this anti-gay hate campaign, promoting no hate in this house. And so, yes, on the surface level, they seem like the ideal gay activists. But as you were saying, they were using other popular social media platforms like Snapchat to send their child pornography and Grindr to connect with other child predators.
And was it how did the police find out about it? A whistleblower, one of their customers or people they had encountered?
So one of the men who was charged, he was arrested for felony sexual exploitation of children because he was busted downloading child pornography of one of the children that the Zulaks adopted. And so he apparently downloaded this child porn to his Google account. So Google is automatically notified. They have this image identification technology that just immediately reports it to authorities. And then that's how, there was a swarm of officers that landed at this guy, Hunter Lawless's house. And so then he just squealed. He squirmed and he snitched and said, look, I'm just low man on totem pole. There's bigger fish to fry.
And then he led them to this couple. There's also something in this story about their mansion. When they adopted these 2 children, they lived in a very humble home. And then suddenly, just a couple of years ago, they got this enormous sort of like McMansion, they like to call them, right, out in the suburbs, custom built for them. And were police sort of curious about where did this money come from?
Right. It's something that, even family members are questioning in hindsight. How can this low-level civil servant, William, the one adopted father, was a DMV customer service rep. The other one, Zachary, was just a small-time small town bank teller. So their combined income wasn't extravagant. When they adopted the children, they lived in this small, old house in Snellville. And then they moved into this custom built house that was designed by William. There's, I believe, 4 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, packed 3-car garage. And it was constructed in half a year. And so where did this money come from? We need to follow the money trail, and now the state has seized the house, seized all their property, their assets, their vehicles, and it's now the property.
And is the allegation that the child pornography and child prostitution helped fund this move, or is that part of the investigation now?
That's heavily the implication.
Same.
Charging documents don't say it, but for the sheriff's office to file a civil complaint to forfeit the property and for the sheriff's office to already seize it, I mean, it seems like it was on suspicion of a RICO act. The judge overseeing the case mentioned at the bond hearing the prosecution possibly proceeding forward under the child sex trafficking statute of Georgia's own RICO Act, which I didn't realize that the state adopted its own from the federal law that's designed to take down organized crime.
There's a big part of this story that involves what isn't happening with it. Part of it is the media, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But what about, I mean, I got to think this is made to order for federal charges, for crying out loud. Child trafficking, child pornography, use of the internet, use of social media platforms, RICO. But it's all state of Georgia right now, or the county that they live in. Why aren't the feds looking into this?
Right, because the DOJ has jurisdiction if, child pornography was created using the internet. And now, being in the modern age, there's just so many developed tools to be able to circulate this filth. And so I do believe it's the DOJ's jurisdiction. And then the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Georgia, they've prosecuted like a handful of child sex related crimes last year. So, it's well within their purview, you'd think. I reached out to them, and the public affairs officer said we declined to comment.
That's what I was going to ask if you had. Of course you had. You're a good reporter over there at Town Hall. There's another aspect of this. You have a source. You've got jailhouse phone calls that the suspects have made to family members. What's that all about?
Yeah, so this all started because a family member who read my initial Town Hall article, she was just very thrilled with the thoroughness of it, and she said she only trusted Town Hall with this story because she wanted it to be reported right, and she didn't want some quick write-up about it. And so she trusted, because I could dig into it, that I'd find more and more. And so she said, so she's on Zachary's side of the family, that William and Zachary were trying to reach out to her. They've been reaching out to any family member who's willing to talk to them because they're desperate. They're alone, they're separated, they're both in maximum security in different detention centers because they're co-defendants. They can't conspire with each other together. And so she shared these recorded jailhouse calls with us, and there's a lot of telling statements in them.
There sure are. It's a chilling part of the story, too, and I commend everybody to go to townhall.com and take a look at this series of stories. We actually played some of the audio yesterday on the program, you'll remember, and you really should look at this as well. Coming up, more with Mia Cathell here, because there's a couple of aspects of this story that really need to be delved into. The first is, how did this adoption ever take place, considering there actually was a history of a criminal pedophile behavior with one of these men? And the second is, where's the rest of the media? I mean, I'm glad that these sources trust Town Hall. They should trust Town Hall. We do a great job, but I would think this would be a big national story. Why isn't it?